Hello, everyone. Another perfect launch to another perfect show. You'll join the ComicBase live stream of all things. And I'm your host, Pete Bickford. I'm the creator of ComicBase and a bunch of other things. And we're going to be trying to cover as much interesting disaster related stuff as we possibly can this show. This is terrible branding, by the way. I used to work at as software consultant, and one of my gigs at one point was for TiVo. One thing that's really interesting is the head of user experience over at TiVo had an ironclad rule that you were never going to show the TiVo logo, which, as much as it was beloved, it's the goofy little TV that bounced around, but as beloved as that icon was, it could never be shown in context with an error message, because then people would think that bad things happened around TiVo, and we couldn't have that. So I'm just ignoring all that hard-won experience there, and I'm gonna give a show about horrible bad things that can happen to your computer and how to avoid them, because I'm a little interested, because if one of those bad things that happened to your computer was like it took out your copy of ComicBase, I'd like to help you avoid that. And so we'll be talking about different ways of making that happen, what to happen if something does go wrong, ways around it, and so forth. And then sharing other interesting technical tips along the way if we can. Anyway, so if you have questions of your own and you'd like to put them to us and have us answer them as best as I can, please put them in the chat to @ComicBaseTV, and we will hit as many of those as we can. Be here for about the next hour or so, give or take, and then we'll get on to it. Anyway, before we get too far down into it, I want to say hi to everyone who's here. Oro Viejo is apparently is off the audition or something, an acting gig. Well, congratulations. So he'll be catching this one late. Mike Beam in the house. Robbie Weinberg from thunderous Toledo, Ohio. Xanadu Comics from Seattle. Greg Hecht out here. Also, is everyone getting thunderstorms? It's been crazy. It's been thunderstorms out here as well, out right outside of Nashville. Just every day it seems like it just the sun gets oppressive and horrible, and humidity, and then cracks of thunder. My dog comes scurrying up here because he's I'm sure he's not scared of anything. He's just bravely protecting me, who I might be scared from the thunder. But anyway, that's been like the last 2 weeks out here. What the heck? Anyway, Tim Kilbreth in the house here from Rainy, Illinois. Dr. Beat from Capitola, right on. Chris Presol from Philly, and Jet City Comics, Ording, Washington. Yes, the picture of my server on the splash panel. Yeah, ours is slightly smaller these days. No, we actually used to have our servers used to be located down in a co-location facility, which was literally a series of card-secured bunkers underneath the streets of First Street in San Jose, California. And I shared before, and one of the things is we were in the server rack that was right next to MoveOn.org, which, and again, who had the most ridiculous server rack ever. It was just, it was as if like a homeless junkie who had like been living in his car had put all his servers and just dumped them into a rack there. They were spilling every which way. I mean, usually server racks are these bright gleaming rows of like blinking LEDs and everything, and this thing was like canted over like this. You thought, man, just one hard shove or just knock into it by accident, and like one of the more major political organizations on the ground would just kind of go down for a while. But anyway, we were right next to there. We are not down there anymore because I'm no longer in San Jose, and also because it was just incredibly expensive paying for bandwidth, or what little bandwidth you could get at a co-location facility. So we do host. Our server room is less impressive, let us say. But anyway, Tyler T, welcome from Albany, New York, and welcome everyone. So a bit of news before we get down into it. First of all, a little plug for our ComicBase users group meeting. Yes, we are doing this thing live in public, and frankly, it's a chance for us to all hang out and just get to see each other and ask questions up close, banter, etc. But we are going to be having our annual user group meeting in San Diego Comic-Con. At the right next to the main show hall. It's the Marriott right next door, same place Nerdrotic was, in the main ballroom there, and that is going to be on Thursday at 10 a.m. on the first day of the show. Please, if you are coming to Comic-Con, please come to the whole thing. It'll be fantastic, and I'm going to be dropping some fairly big news. So wish me luck on that, because it's also the cause for lots and lots of late nights up until that time. So anyway, but yeah, so stop on by. I'm still trying to figure out a way to make the whole filming thing work. If you guys have any spare hands and you're going to be in the room, make yourself known. Drop me a note at pbickford@humancomputing.com. I would love it if someone could run a camera or something, just because even though they're a little bit weird about filming, at least live, I would like to very much record the event. So even if I got to delay it by a day, because that apparently is Comic-Con regulation, I would love to be able to broadcast the event. So let's see if we can make that happen. I'm just going out there by myself. Mark was going to try to make it. Unfortunately, he's got some lame excuse about, like, I don't know, having his first kid or something. So yeah, I mean, these guys will make up anything to get out of these things. But anyway, I look forward to seeing everyone there. And also, if you're on the ComicBase leaderboard anywhere in the first 200, beers on me. Just all you gotta do is hit me up, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's contributed so much over the years. So all right, so other things that are going on. You might have noticed that the server this weekend got a little slow on Saturday. That's because I was doing a full reset of all the thumbnails on the server. So basically what that means is we went to the 1.35 million core cover images and pre-generated out all the different file sizes those get used at. So it's something like 10 million images, give or take. Including some ones for the mobile app. So anyway, those all got regenerated. The reason we regenerated them is because it lets us refreshen them up. But more importantly, it also lets us replace any of the ones that were misclassified when we made the separation between newsstand covers and regular covers. So if you've been, pulling down your own images from our servers, and it's like, you say, wait a minute, that's the newsstand cover. It's got the barcode, and you thought it was should have been the regular one. If you download those now, you should now, if we have it, you get the regular one. If we don't have it, then you won't get the right one. In which case, if you have it, please send it to us, because then we can make things better for everyone. But I will probably be doing this sort of thing, resetting the server images probably every few weeks for the next couple months. It was a big change when we made the decision that editorially that we were going to treat the newsstand issues as separate from the direct market issues. And it's going to take a while for all of that stuff to shake out. I'd say the big majority of it at this point is already done, but things will keep dribbling in. So I will, perpetually be, occasionally just, hitting the refresh button. The refresh button, of course, meaning that I get to bury the poor server for about 8 hours. But that's good, because it used to take a week and a half. So there's that. Okay, let's see here. Okay, and speaking of mobile life, yes, dancing around the. Thank you, Greg Hecht is asking the question. Speaking of mobile app, any news on the timeline for a new Apple iOS app? And that was the 2 items down. I was due to dance around that one. Here's the note I wrote to myself: mobile and web, lots of things afoot. Stay tuned. I mean, I could pull out my iPhone and just wave it up there and show it to you. I mean, it's really pretty. It looks nice. But anyway, we will be showing that off, and it may or may not have something to do with the Comic-Con time frame. But yes, a lot of things are going on in that one. This is going to be kind of a strange release. Actually, let me back up to the previous item that I skipped over here. So we have officially started what they call the fork for the next version of ComicBase. What that means basically is you take everything that we were doing for the ComicBase 2025 cycle, which has been insane. You guys have to know that we're at like build 4,400 of the ComicBase 2025 cycle. We've done at least 2 major complete overhauls of the software during that time frame. In addition to the main launch, we released the professional plus versions and the free plus versions, so that the pro and the express and the free guys all get access to cover images and so forth. We've done incredible amounts of speed ups across the whole line and so forth. So we have really packed like 2 years worth of material easily into what we've done for this version, and this has something to do with what I am doing right now. But what we have to do right now is, when we get ready to do our brand new next major version of ComicBase, there comes a time when you say, okay, look, pause on the 2025 cycle, and now we need to say, okay, and now work begins in earnest on 2026. So if anything suddenly comes out of the woodwork and says, no, here's a critical bug that needs to be addressed in 2025, we will, of course, go back and address it, should it come up. But honestly, 2025 has been pretty beat on. So it's very cool. It's very different than when it first launched. And if you don't have the latest version of ComicBase 2025, please do go to My Account Registrations over at comicbase.com and just hit the download link on there. We have, as a policy, we try not to push a forced update more than once a quarter. And because we've been working so aggressively on the whole thing, there's actually several versions that would have been major updates in another year that you can get if you download them, but you are going to have to go and pull them down manually. Or if in ComicBase, if you have the, under setup and preferences, if you have it set to check for interim updates, then you'll get it automatically that way. But if you have been, using ComicBase for any length of time and have not downloaded more recent updates, yeah, you actually can get some pretty cool new stuff in the program and actually have things work a lot faster if you do pull down the most recent update of ComicBase just manually, just right now. Anyway, but we are essentially forking in the road, concentrating all our efforts at this point on doing the next major version of things. If you'd like to be part of the crew to get involved early in the release of ComicBase 2026, this is codename Metropolis. Please let me know. I, again, put my number up on the screen here again, pbickford@human-computing.com. One of the smarter things we ever did is several years ago, we instituted a program where anyone who's interested, who's a customer who just likes seeing the sausage made, which means running into buggy versions and giving early feedback on unstable builds and all that kind of great development stuff. But if you like that sort of thing in your life, we invite you, frankly, to join our Slack group so you actually can get the pre-release drops, comment straight to the development team as we're going. It's like, hey, this is working, this is not working, I like what I'm seeing here, I don't like that, and so forth. And that goes on, and you become part of the internal team basically until we release, and usually beyond until we turn the clock over to the next one. But if you'd like to be a part of it, please send a note to pbickford@human-computing.com, and I will send you an invite to the Slack group. And if you are in the Slack group already, we are going to start seeing drops of that right now. We've just started compiling the installers for the first test builds. Right now we have placeholder art. It's like we don't even typically when we have these things, you get to see the sketch art for the next version. At this point, we have sketch art for the fake sketch art that we have for the whole thing, so it's going to be crazy as far as the whole thing. But yeah, here we go. This is the first day of being switched over to 2026 internally, and we'll be sharing that with you if you're on the internal team not too long from now. And for other people who are guessing when we might be shipping it, let's just say we do put a lot of emphasis around trying to make a show at Comic-Con. Not making any promises right now, but you will certainly know more by then. All right. So other things coming on. A little context about the mobile and web stuff. So because we've more or less fast forwarded our entire year on the desktop version of ComicBase, this whole thing, what's happening in my life right now, mostly on the back end, is a lot of stuff that isn't going to be visible to y'all on the outside until we pull the trigger and make the new versions of the mobile app available to the world. And honestly, it's kind of weird because we've had to do the hard work of getting the actual code working, which I don't have it up here on this other one, but if you could see my desk right now, it's littered with like 3 different kinds of computers, 3 different types of mobile phones and so forth, pro versions of iPhones and so forth, and because it's been nothing but constant testing and builds and so forth forever. And honestly, I don't care how hard, how big your desk is at home. It's really hard to organize like 7 computers and phones on your desk at once. I'm just saying. If someone has like an interesting ergonomic solution for filing all that kind of stuff and keeping it in order, please send me a link to wherever it is on Amazon. I got to buy that thing because I would love it. It's been chaos here, but anyway, so I'll be doing this stuff, and we might be, just because one of the big gating factors we've had is getting approved through the app stores, particularly the Apple App Store. We're probably going to put I think the way we're going to stage it is that we're going to be putting out a version of the ComicBase mobile that's kind of like, it's neither the old nor the new. It's kind of like it's an in-between one. So it's based on a lot of the new code, but with a lot of the really new features turned off, because those are going to be relying on the back end being turned on. So when we ship ComicBase 2026, suddenly all that stuff will go live. But in the meantime, we'll probably be getting, just because we don't want to get burnt like we did in the past, on just getting hung up at the App Store approval level. So I think we're going to make a jump on that one, just because we do want to get a version of the program out there as soon as possible. So the biggest problem for users right now is if you have an iPhone Pro, the camera has not been working for you ever since you got your iPhone Pro. The deal on that was, so the iPhone Pro, right, it's got this little, fun extra camera on it. I'm not sure if I pointed the right one. I just pointed to a random, camera. I'm not sure which of these three is the macro camera. But what they did over at Apple, being Apple, is they made it so that, yes, when you're holding something close to the thing you want to look at, it switches to a different camera. And unfortunately, the barcode scanning software library that we had worked with can't handle the idea that, wait, I was looking at one camera and you just switched to a different camera on me, and it's not the main camera. And so the way around that is, the way you get around it is you force the zoom on the camera to be enough so that it keeps, paying attention to the main camera. Unfortunately, the problem with the old app is that because it was looking at the wrong camera until you pulled far enough away in order to be able to have it switch back to the main camera, by that point you were so far away from the barcode that you couldn't be recognized because it's too small in the frame. We did work that problem out. We've got a solution. It's not bad. We're hoping to have a great solution to it very shortly, but the not bad solution, I'm going to see if I can get that shipping soonish. Like I say, prior to when we do our full rollout, because you guys have been waiting around too long with really nice phones not being able to use the barcode feature, and it's driving everyone crazy. Plus, the version of the mobile app was getting a little long in the tooth. Just, inside baseball on this one. When we started doing the mobile app, mobile apps are weird. I mean, they're weird on so many levels, because you're writing them for different computers all at once. You're writing them for Android, you're writing them for iOS. But typically, because you're writing with, you want to work with a lot of data, and you're doing it on a device that intentionally is very, very underpowered, very slow processors, very little memory to work with, and so forth. So typically, mobile apps really are doing a lot of their work with the back end. They're basically talking to a server all day long to get all the heavy stuff from there and processing that. So with the first couple versions of the mobile app we did, our side of things, me and human computing was taking care of writing the back end stuff. So we'd be doing the servers that you'd be talking to, but we were hiring out specialists to do the mobile apps themselves, because we just did not have that skill in house. So we did a big convert over. We did the main one, we did an update, and then we did a convert over to a platform called Maui. It's the new version of what used to be called Xamarin. For the Microsoft platform. And in the process, honestly, we had enough pain with working with developers and delays and things like that, that just like you were twisting in the wind waiting for builds to come in, that once we got code that we could work with at all, we made the decision to take that that and learn the skills ourselves in-house, that we could control so we can control the whole package going forward. So that's what we have been doing. And again, that's the source of a bunch of late nights for me in particular. But the good news is that everything here, it's not going to be like an excuse like, oh no, we would do that, but we don't have this developer. Oh, we would do that, but we can't. It's no, if it should be done, it's going to get done. And so we actually are in full control of the app at this point. So we may even change the name. Don't even know. But it should be something that is not only better, but also gets better faster in the future. And there's a lot of cool new things planned. But anyway, More on that later, but let's move on. All right, so let me see here. Other people say, yeah, the old app keeps crashing me. I don't doubt it. It's like I say, very long in the tooth at this point. Very much looking forward to replacing it utterly, but like I say, there'll probably be an interim version before we do the full replace. Okay, so let's get on to the main subject, which is, of course, disasters. All right, and this one I'm going to use, honestly, just as a framing story. There's a poor customer, who, lovely guy, but just had the worst thing happen to him. And the reason I'm forming up, thoughts around this poor guy's travails is because we've largely over the years managed to make it so that the sort of thing that happened to this guy doesn't happen to too many people. But as long as certain things are in place, it's always a possibility, and so we want to help you avoid that if we can. The thing, of course, that happened to him is his computer, crashed utterly. Hard drive utterly failed, and he lost a lot of work. Not sure with other things as well, but also, the part that we care about is he lost a lot of work that he had done in ComicBase. So anytime. It's, once upon a time, if you guys are old enough, you remember when they used to say the computer was the third most expensive thing that most people would ever buy, in their lives. It would be basically their house, their car, and then their computer. Those were in order the most expensive possessions that most normal middle-class people would have. For the people who grew up when that statement was in effect, I hope we've all internalized by now the whole idea that your computer, it may feel expensive, like, compared to a lot of things it is, but the thing that is truly expensive, irreplaceable, is your data. The hardware itself is nothing compared to the value of your data. So above all, the thing you are protecting when you use a computer is you've got to protect your time. Your time becomes your data, and that's the investment that you want to keep on forever. Now, a lot with the move toward the cloud, in a way, it's this kind of weird thing that's happened. It's in that used to be if your computer hard drive went and you didn't have a backup, well, your host, that was the end of your story, because it was on your machine, and unless you had kept a copy someplace else, which of course most people got to, you either got good at it or you learned horrible bad lessons, because computers do fail. But back in those days, it was very much beaten into people, the idea that you have to keep a backup regimen. Now, there's been a big move for a lot of our stuff to that your data isn't really on your computer anymore. So like if I'm looking at emails for the last 10 years, yeah, okay, there's a copy on my computer, that I can look at if I open up Outlook or something. But really, the main copy of that email is really living on a mail server someplace. Now, granted, because I manage the servers, I know exactly where that thing is stored, but most people don't. It lives on somebody's hard drive someplace else, not in my house. Same thing goes if you use Google Docs, or you're using Microsoft Office 365 or things like that. All the documents that you think you're storing, yeah, there might be a local copy on your hard drive, but really the main copy is someplace else. And so as long as Microsoft or Google or one of those guys don't lose your stuff, then you're pretty much good. You can do something really stupid, like, I don't know, take your computer into a hardware repair guy and do a lot of crack and never pay the hardware repair guy back. And then, I guess you could pick up all your important documents because they're mirrored someplace else next time you buy another laptop and just download those. You may have left documents behind, but I guess it's not your amazing problem. But no, it's funny these days. It's like laptops, which once used to be the most expensive, unbelievable things, and they're also very fragile. Laptops were terrible because not only they cost thousands of dollars, but you also drop them. I don't know anyone who's worked with a laptop who hasn't at some point or another killed their laptop, either the screen or the whole thing. But anyway, because so much of our work is moved to the cloud, it's not quite as life and death as it used to be. That being said, there are things that are uniquely on your stuff, and that's actually a good thing it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, right? The good part is it's yours, exclusively yours. You don't need to keep paying for that cloud provider service. So, like if I store my documents in the Adobe cloud, and so if all the ComicBase thumbnails were all stored up there, And I decided I don't want to renew my copy of Creative Cloud next year because it's like really expensive now. But if I decide not to, those documents go away if I don't have them stored someplace else. I mean, I'd get a couple notes, which I may or may not catch from my spam filter, which will say, yeah, we're going to delete all your documents in 30 days. And then, kaboom, gone. And suddenly, if I'm looking for that graphic that was really good, that took forever to create, if I didn't store it someplace locally, it's gone. All your photos, all your family memories, all the letters you sent to people and things like that. If they only live on somebody else's machine, and you didn't pay for that service one year, or you forgot your login or whatever the thing is, yeah, you're just as vulnerable. You don't actually have them on your machine. I know I work with a number of people who never really know where their photos are. I mean, are they on my phone? Have they been mirrored up to Dropbox? Have they been stored on iCloud, etc.? And wherever they are, they don't really know because they don't keep their own photo library. And so it's forever a game of, well, where do I have the photo? Where was that photo? Did I send you the photo? Can you send it back to me, etc.? It's kind of a weird way to go. Like I say, it has some upsides. It's distributed. You're not going to lose everything at one point, probably. But it has a downside in terms of like the ownership. Now, ComicBase is in its current model, let's say, it's a weird one. It's called a thick web client, is what the IT geeks call it, which basically says it's a database that lives on your computer. It's a file on your drive, just like if you open up Microsoft Word and start typing, that's a file on your drive. But we also use the cloud for everything that helps you do better things. So if you want to, save a copy of the back, as a backup, we certainly do that. But things like posting your information to Atomic Avenue is something that touches our servers, and at that point, then we know what you've got. But until that moment, we don't know what you've got because it's yours, it's private, it's we don't have any part of that transaction until you say, no, I actually want to share this, and so then I'm going to put it up to the internet and work with that. We also use the cloud, of course, to distribute updates. So, like I say, if you install ComicBase, you never connect to the internet again, and you just use your comics. Then again, you use your comic books in catalog them in peace. You never need to talk to us again. You never need to pay us another dime. But we do this thing when you buy ComicBase is that we give you 52 weeks of free updates. So we not only update your program, but every week we put up an update with everything new that happened in the world of comic books that week. So I think last week I saw the stats. There's a little scoreboard we keep internally. Something like 39,000 new price updates came down just last week, and we added 24,000, I think was the number, new items to the database and so forth. And we push that kind of stuff every week. Well, that of course requires an internet connection. So for that to happen, what happens is your database of record, the one that lives on your hard drive, you talk to our server, the server says, hey, yeah, I've got some new data for you, you want it? And you say, yeah, and then it incorporates that stuff into your database. But again, until you share your database with us, we don't know what you have. You got what we had, but we don't know what you have. Now, you can, and for a number of years we've been offering this, I think ever since ComicBase 11, maybe 10. But we have the ability now to save a copy to the cloud. Very important. So you can basically, take a copy of your database, save it up to a special place on our, disk drives, hooked up for you. And that way, if something goes wrong, in your life, there's at least one other place you can go and look for it. But we also use that, the ability, we started about 5-6 years ago. We expanded what Save to Cloud can do because we wanted to be able to support the mobile app out of the back of it. So it used to be what we do on the mobile app is you would just make static reports of what you had, and they would be saved as HTML documents and saved up on our servers. You could look at them from your phone, and it was great because you could look at them from your desktop or your Mac or your PC or your tablet, whatever else. The problem we found out, and this hit me during a road trip about 5 years ago, is that if you have a really big comic book collection and you're looking at it on like a regular phone, because these things really have very little RAM in them. Usually it's only like a couple gigabytes of RAM, and they're using that for the operating system and everything else at the same time. Very easy to overwhelm the browser the HTML browser of the phone if you give it a lot of data. So I was trying to figure out, there was like a deal I could have gotten on Superman and Action Comics volume whatever 5 or something at a Ollie's discount warehouse, and I was trying to figure, well, do I have it or not? And I thought, lucky me, I've staved my report on the cloud. Let me just open up that report, scroll down to Superman Action Comics, and I will know. And the phone crashed, because of course it did, because the S title, if you guys will know, if you ever sort comic books, S has like 3 times the number of titles and data in it of every other title in your database. And so I was scrolling through my S's, and it overwhelmed the browser, and it crashed, and I couldn't tell, and that pissed me off. So it pissed me off so much that when I got back from that trip, I decided I was going to do a fundamental change in kind of our relationship between you guys and us. When we find, again, we've always historically been very hands off. Your data is your data, not our data. Your data is your data. But I thought, wait a minute, we can't get along just with saving static reports. We need to have some way that your data can update our data in terms, or at least we'll keep a separate copy of your data in our cloud, so that when you need to, you can use one of these phones. They're lovely, but have no memory in them. And look up what you've got, as opposed to just reading down a report of what you've got. And that was really the genesis of the first major rev of the mobile app, is that let you search your own inventory by looking up titles. Now, in order to do that, what we have to do is every time you say save to the cloud, we save it up to copy up to our servers, but then we also tell our servers, hey, open up this guy's database, and let's say your name is Bob Smith. Okay, Bob Smith, user ID number, blah, blah, blah. And he's got a database called Bob's Comics. Open that up, and I want you to extract out all the things he has marked in stock and save a copy of that on our server in a special database, so we can search it with a database and say, okay, Bob Smith's Comics, user ID number, whatever, with database ID number, whatever else, Bob's Comics, what has he got it? And you can search, and when you're searching, you're just searching your own stuff. Now, we don't look through your stuff. We're not interested. But, we keep this in a separate place on our server. But that does give you a way to, interact, and do cool things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Now, the part that I get a little twitchy about on the side, excuse me, just my demo computer, of course, just downloaded an update, and I'm trying to keep track of that, because even though I said don't update now, it went and updated now, because it's Microsoft, because hallelujah. Anyway, the part that I admit, because I'm an old school guy, I've always been a little uncomfortable, because I really do appreciate, having the advantage of, having your data anywhere you want to go, having it backed up everywhere and so forth. So, I do like all of the things that cloud services bring. But one thing I don't like about it is it does change the relationship you've got between you and the people who are hanging onto your data. Because if the primary copy of your data exists on somebody's server, right? So if you've got like a Google document or something like that, the primary copy is on their server. It's not on your computer. Like a lot of times, even if somehow you don't have an internet connection, you can't even open that thing. But definitely, I don't love the idea that if the main copy is somewhere else, what it does is it says, well, okay, you have access to their stuff as long as you're on good terms with them, which, for most people is you didn't violate their terms of service if it's a free service like Google, or you didn't lose the password to your account, things like that. Other times it's things like, well, no, we charge $120 a year for our services, so if you don't pay it up, there you go. Or it's $900 for a Creative Cloud. If you didn't pay for it, again, they give you a little bit of notice, and then they tell you, yep, we're deleting your stuff. So I don't love that. I'm very old school in my own thinking on that one, where I do like the idea that, no, your data is your data, but that only applies when your data lives on your machine. So this is all a very long way of saying that is, that's where everything goes in terms of like how ComicBase uses the web, where stuff is and so forth. Fundamentally, your data is all sitting there, probably in a file called ComicBase database.cbdb, if you guys want to know the file extension, and it's sitting there right on your hard drive, which is wonderful, because like I say, if we piss you off and you never want to do business with us again, as long as you're not using our server, you can use the software forever. It's like, none of your data went away. The only thing we charge you for is if you need something like you need a new update, or you want to save stuff to the cloud. Well, if you're not paying for your subscription, well, then we're going to say, well, you need to update your subscription. But as far as using the software or looking up your stuff, all that stuff sticks around forever. All right, so here's the downside of that, right? I mean, I love the freedom, I love, love the capability, I love the speed, frankly. The downside, of course, is it means you're responsible for your core data. So if something happens to your machine, it wipes out the only copy you had. This is tough. All right, so let's go back to our friend. This guy came in, he'd upgraded his copy of ComicBase. He was coming from a very old version. Better part of a decade old, and unfortunately, he had not backed up his stuff. His hard drive had failed. It was an SSD, but it failed catastrophically. It failed the way that SSDs, solid state drives of a certain age, can only do, which is they typically, SSDs have, especially the original set that came out, have a limited write cycle. In other words, they can, the memory cells on them can only be read and written reliably a certain number of times. That might have been what happened to this guy's drive. It might have been something else, but he had that rarest of all things, an utter and total SSD failure. If he had a mechanical drive, the kind where it's a spinning platters, so they call them spinning magnetic discs. But basically, what that is imagine like a little coaster, made out of metal, spinning away at about 5,000 rotations a second, and right on either side of it are these little things clicking back and forth like this, and that's the sound they're making, is they're going, because what they're doing is, if you actually watch it in effect, is they're swinging out over the surface of the disk as it rotates by at stupid speed, and they're trying to find the little bits of magnetic data coming underneath them. Well, one of the fundamental things that will happen with magnetic disks, if they ever take a shock, or if any goo ever somehow gets inside that drive casing, that's why, of course, they always look like they're welded shut. They are literally hermetically sealed. But if you ever manage to give it a shock at just the wrong time, you drop it while it's spinning or writing, things like that, you get what's called a head crash, where that little spindle that's floating, a few microns over the surface of the rapidly spinning metal disc, that thing can actually bounce down into the disc while it's spinning, scratching a huge gouge into it as it's going, and that data is gone, daddy gone. It's never coming back. So typically magnetic drives would be always the things, just because people are people and things happen in the physical world. Those would be the ones that would typically fail on you the most. But it is possible also. SSDs, even though you can put them in model rockets and launch them up with parachutes and things like that, they're essentially shock proof because there's no moving parts. But there are things that can happen to them. You can fry the circuit board, you can overwrite the wears on them and so forth. Anyway, so this poor guy, unfortunately, he fried his SSD. One way or another, the thing was dead. So he calls us up and he says, "Hey, I'm looking for my data, and my laptop is dead. Do you have a copy of our data?" Now, 9 times out of 10, I'd be like, absolutely, let's look up your user account number and let's see what we got for you. And then here's where bad thing number 2 happened to this guy. Remember how we have the ability to save to the cloud in ComicBase, which we do in Sidekick, and that would be probably a good time to whip over to the other computer there and show what that looks like. If you can see that the update is done. Let's make sure Sidekick is launched and have a look over there. And don't panic, Greg, I'm just checking. I will switch to the monitor before I go over there. Okay, so yeah, there we go. All right, so let's switch over to that one. And so here we have, this is our little demo computer. By the way, and this will probably become relevant in a minute, this little demo computer here is like a $269 computer. This is a nothing computer. And the fact that it works perfectly well should tell you that computers are not, the price of computers is not the gating factor in the world these days. Anyway, so we handle cloud backups with a little thing called Sidekick. It's down here in the bottom right-hand corner. There's a little guy that looks like a superhero here. If you click on him and say open, you can see the interface on it. And unless I just had it open, tell me I don't have this off screen. Anyway, so let's pull him up. So Sidekick, it lets you, save things to the cloud and so forth. Unfortunately, when you start ComicBase originally, one of the very first things you'll do when you start the program, let me see if I can put myself in the screen over here. There we go. Sorry, move my chair so I'm in frame. So one of the first things that will happen when you launch ComicBase is it'll go through this little startup thing. It'll say, hey, couple settings we just want to get you through. So, and we'll try to explain what we're doing. But basically it comes down to, because we know what you're going to do, but we have to explain, is we say, look, do you want to use the standard settings for handling backups? And what we're doing is we say things like, what that really comes down to is we're going to automatically save a bunch of backups of your hard drive. Every time you exit the program, it'll save a copy on your hard drive, but then it'll also say, and that same database, we're going to say that you want to back it up using Sidekick. Now we have to ask, because again, we're asking you to share your data, and we don't want to do that automatically because that would be a violation of you. I mean, it would feel creepy, but I'm going to face it. We also kind of know that most people don't read these things very carefully. That's why we're kind of giving you one big, beautiful button which says, yeah, do you want to do the normal thing that'll probably leave you in good shape? That's the one. If you want to customize, well, then click the other button. But yeah, most of the time we know that people will go for the default things, and we want you to go for the default setting. We really do. But one of the things that does is it adds your database to the list of databases that Sidekick manages right over here. Let me go ahead and grab the magnifier here so I can actually make this visible on screen. So if your database is called the normal thing, it's called ComicBase database, and it's stored in, in this case, the Documents Human Computing ComicBase databases folder. For more modern people, it's probably in your C ComicBase ComicBase databases folder. But anyway, what we do is by doing that, we're basically setting you up so that when you go ahead and back up to the cloud, that's the database that's going to get backed up. Now, unfortunately, you can also create more than one database in ComicBase. Now, that's a good thing, right? It's one of the more controversial things we've ever done in our lives. Is we said, well, there are people who need more than one database. Yeah, like maybe I've got my database. Maybe I got a database I want to keep for my friend who he wants me to sell his comic books for him. Maybe I have got one for my kid. Maybe I want a separate database from my Marvels and my DCs. Whatever reasons, I have reasons. But if you have more than one database, that also means that you could do the Murphy's Law thing where the database you're backing up isn't the database you were doing your work in. And unfortunately, that is what happened to this poor guy, is that he had a standard ComicBase database, and then for reasons, he decided, no, I'm going to put it in Bob's database. His name's not really Bob, but let's say it was. He's made a new database called Bob's database or something like that, and he started doing all his work from there. The standard ComicBase database, meanwhile, was the one getting backed up. He never added the other one to Sidekick, so as a result, Sidekick was always backing up this kind of default database all its time over the years, and so he never had us backing up his stuff to the cloud. He was also using this prior to ComicBase 2025, when we introduced the lovely feature where in ComicBase itself you can actually say save to the cloud. Let me go ahead and show you that one. By the way, this stuff probably, you might say, well, yeah, that's a little bit elaborate. Why do you guys have it done this way? Saving to the cloud. So the ComicBase database is usually it's a big file. It's a couple gigabytes in size. So it's you're not just saving like the letter to grandma here. So when you say file and you say save to cloud, what we're actually doing when you do that is, if I click this off right now, is it'll actually make a copy of the database of that whole thing, exit you out brief, it'll close close ComicBase briefly, make a copy of what it was doing, compress that thing because you don't want to send a 2 gigabyte file to the cloud. It'll compress down to a 600 megabyte file because that would take infinitely longer. Most people's up speed is nowhere near as fast as their down speed. So we're going through all these gymnastics, and then we reopen the database. So what it looks like to you is that you said save to cloud. It's a great saving, done it, on it, boom, and it does all the rest of the stuff in the background, and you just get back to your work. So that's pretty cool, and we introduced this feature in ComicBase 2025. We did not have it before. But before, the only way you could save to the cloud was to go through Sidekick, as we say, and just have it be one of the databases you had done, and you hit save to cloud. Now, realistically, I'll inside baseball on this one. When I say save to cloud from inside ComicBase, I'm actually, again, making a backup. Here, I'll do it right now. It'll say backup to this database cloud, and it says, update your database in ComicBase mobile app, and changes will typically appear in the next 30 minutes. What it's really doing here, and we'll just give it a second. Whoops, sorry, let me switch computers. So when I say file save to the cloud, what it's really doing here during this time is it's, again, closing the database, saving a copy of the database, compressing that database, and then handing it over to Sidekick, so there's doing the save of the whole thing. Now, the part you can't see, because now it just reopens ComicBase, so you can go back and start working, right? But what it's doing in the background, and you can see this if you open it up in Task Manager, is it's now kicked off a task to compress your database, and then when that's done compressing, Sidekick's going to activate, and Sidekick is going to then go ahead and open that one up and move it on and send it up to our servers. All right, so that's what's going on with that. Unfortunately, he did not have this feature either, and so when he was saving his database, it was the wrong database. When he was working in a non-standard database that we'd never heard of and so forth. Long story short, we didn't have a copy of his stuff. Now, it's not just us. He also had OneDrive on his machine. And a OneDrive is software set up by Microsoft, put on by default these days. They don't ask you if you got a Windows 11 Pro, it's on there. It automatically, in most installs I've seen, will automatically actually kidnap your whole documents folder, and make it so that anything you put in your documents folder automatically gets dropped off into your OneDrive folder. Unfortunately, his OneDrive was also not working. It had no backups. So let's go through the tragedies of this poor guy. He'd been working for a very long time to again, whatever other work he did on his machine. This was also gone, but in terms of his ComicBase stuff, he'd been working for a very long time. He had never saved a copy up to our cloud, so we had never seen his database, right? He was backing up, but his whole hard drive had failed, so he couldn't look at any of his automatic backups. He couldn't just open those up. That was a problem. The hard drive was, as it turns out, was dead. And so the extreme methods of I'll talk about later about how just pulling the old hard drive from the dead machine and sticking in an external enclosure, that didn't help him. OneDrive had never backed up, so it was not backed up on anyone else's thing, and of course he did not have a backup of his own on a hard drive and so forth. So what do you do in that case? And this is the answer. It's the first time I've had to give this answer in probably, I don't know, 5-6 years. Is I had to tell a customer, it's like, I'm sorry, I can do nothing to help you on that one. We tried everything, and including, I actually led him through, I asked him, what kind of laptop do you have? I said, well, okay, I'm looking at, if this was me, right, if this had happened to me and I had no backups of stuff that I loved, one thing, if your laptop doesn't boot, a lot of times, just because your machine won't boot, that means there's some damage to the sectors that are used right when you start up. There's this whole elaborate dance your computer does to try to figure out, okay, where's Windows and what device should I be launching on, and what devices need to be loaded in order to make that happen. There's a whole lot of stuff that has to happen to make a machine that boots. There's a whole lot less that has to happen to make a drive that just reads as a hard drive. So if you have a hard drive that's failed and you want to get stuff off of it, even if the machine is, it's like, no, it gives BIOS errors, it will not boot, whatever else. If you have a brand new machine, the very first thing I would do in these cases, if I had something precious on there that I did not want to lose and I hadn't backed up someplace else, is open up your old machine, and unless it's like an Apple a MacBook where the SSD is literally soldered to the circuit board. Actually, I think even those aren't soldered not these days. I mean, I think there were one or two, but these days I think even those are in a socket. But what you can do is you can get a external enclosure. It's basically it's a little case. It's it's slightly larger than the drive itself, but typically they're about if it's a NVMe SSD, they're about this big. It's basically just a metal case with a USB plug on it for power and data transfer. And what you do is you pull out your old drive, you slot it into there, it just snaps right in. You put the USB case on it and you plug it into your new computer, and suddenly you have, and here you have a D drive, and your D drive that just appears right then is all the stuff that you thought you had lost forever. And that works almost always. Unfortunately for this poor guy, it did not work for him because he had that rare kind of failure where the SSD had utterly and totally, it ceased being a disk for whatever reason. I don't know if it was electrostatic shock or if it just hit that write limit or whatever. But yeah, it was gone, so far gone. But for most people, if you pop the old drive out of your old machine, you will be able to get it back. I honestly, this is the first time I've ever seen a guy where it did not work that way. I've saved any number of drives myself when they failed catastrophically. I don't think I've had a hard drive fail utterly where it couldn't read on one level or another in probably more than a decade. And that was definitely an old mechanical hard drive with a head crash. But anyway, that would definitely be a tip I would give if you have data that you've lost on an old computer you want to get back. Just yank the drive. If you got to pay Best Buy to yank it for you, but just, usually in this case, there were YouTube videos that would explain exactly which 6 screws you had to, unplug and lead you through all the disassembly of your old laptop, which is dead anyway. You can't hurt it, right? And how to pull the whole hard drive and be able to read your data off of it. All right. The other thing that could have happened that might have helped this guy, and unfortunately it did not, but this is extreme measures. It's not an official thing. I was telling you, as one guy to another, who, again, nobody likes losing their data, is if you have ever posted your stuff for sale on Atomic Avenue, or if you've ever touched our servers with your database. So if you've ever saved to our cloud with your real data, and so you could sync up to the mobile app and things like that. Remember I told you that we save a copy of your data in a special area of our database, so we know what you had in stock. Now, we don't know everything, so if you kept entries on things that you don't have marked as in stock, we don't know about those. And if you had items that aren't in ComicBase, so if you're using it to track your bug collection or things like that. Real story, yes, there was a university that uses ComicBase to track the department's bug collection. I don't know why, they just like the interface. But if you have things like that, we don't have a space for those things to go on our server, so we don't know what those are. But anything that we have ever heard of that is a ComicBase known item and you have saved, we can actually make an extract off of our servers. We've done this to help a couple people in the past, where we can basically generate a text file that you can then import in to a brand new copy of ComicBase on your new machine app, after it's all done, and you can import it in and load up and at least see the last time that our server ever saw your stuff, even if you didn't save a backup. So even if all you did was post your stuff for sale on Atomic Avenue, with anything you posted for sale, we know what it was, and so we can give that back to you, and you can import that back in. Unfortunately, this poor guy had never done any of this. He'd never his right database had never touched our cloud in any way, shape, or form. So that was not great for him. The only upside for him is he did locate a very, very old backup that he had, and so he didn't lose everything, but it's way worse than it should be. So just to kind of check off how to make sure stuff like this never, ever, ever happens to you. Let's just kind of review the steps on this one. So let's say you're looking at your data one day and suddenly you don't see the data you want. All right, so ComicBase, like we used to take this call a couple times a year. It's like it'd be like, wait, I was using ComicBase and then suddenly all my data is gone. And we basically, as nicely as you could say, it basically means you've just opened a different database. Whatever. I don't know what you did, but you made a new database, but somewhere or another you started switching. You were working in one database, you are now working in a different database. I'm just telling you that is exactly what happens, because every time you do anything ComicBase, it is saved the second you exit the field. You don't need to do anything extra. We never throw anything away, and so if it looks like all the things have been thrown away, it's an optical illusion. It's being played upon you. But what's really happened is you were working here, and then you were working here, and the stuff that was over here is not on the table anymore, and you're saying, where'd my stuff go? That is what happened. So we actually wrote a special tool in ComicBase called the ComicBase Database Manager, that should that ever happen to you, and it happens. This is that whole downside of, should we have ever made it possible to make more than one database? Because had we only made the whole thing just locked down to one database, so much trouble could have been avoided, but then you wouldn't have the ability to do lots of cool stuff. So if you're ever wondering where your stuff is, really, very easy way to get to it is go into File, go to File Tools, and click this icon that says ComicBase Database Manager. It'll say, hey, do you want get out of ComicBase and launch this ComicBase Database Manager? You say yes, and in just a second, and remember, this is on the $260 computer. It's going to launch this little program. And this program's entire purpose in life is to scan all your hard drives, everything connected to your computer, and find everything that looks like it might be a ComicBase database, any version of ComicBase at all. It could be like one from 2012. It'll open up and it'll tell you what comics are in it, what they're, what they were worth, and so forth. And it'll very quickly let you find where it was your bad database or where the wrong database is. It'll let you find those ones and choose the right database. While you're at it, it also will do some nice things where, again, anything you see where like it's, comics are 0, that's probably a stock database that you never used. So if you want to, you can also click on here and do some house cleaning. You can say, here's a free database I kept around, just for testing. And so even while this thing's running, you can go ahead and click on these ones and say, do you want to delete this one? Yes, you can. And do your house cleaning. So if you haven't done this in a very long time, you probably have lots and lots of old databases and backups of databases and things like that. Don't worry about cleaning up the backups. They'll clean themselves up. But if you do want to do house cleaning on yourself or organize or see just where's all your stuff, ComicBase Database Manager, not a bad way to go. It takes a while because it's going to search every single device that's attached to your computer and every single folder in it. So it will do that, but yeah, worth doing. By the way, there's a new feature in this as of 2025, 4, somewhere along last year or so. I know we put this in, but you also can have it verify the database as it's going. It takes a little bit longer, but it will not only tell you what's in it, but it'll also structurally make sure that the database is in good shape. So there's no internal damage or anything hinky with the database whatsoever. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop that one. But yeah, so if you're ever looking for stuff and you don't see it, number one place to start with ComicBase Database Manager, just because it's probably on your data, on your disk. You just need to figure out where you put it. And it could happen also, like if you rename a folder that was part of where your ComicBase is stored, or just different things. I mean, there's different ways you can confuse yourself pretty easily in using a PC. I mean, it's no offense, it happens to everyone, so don't take any of it badly. Anyway, so let me see here. Oh, look, I've got another pending update on the demo machine. Okay, let's restart that while it's going. Okay, but if you don't see your thing, number one, look for those backups. So ComicBase Database Manager it'll find not only your regular database, it'll also find any of those automatic backups that ComicBase will make. By default, ComicBase is going to make 5 different backups. Every time you exit the program, it's going to make a timestamp backup. And after 5, by default, you can increase this if you want, or you can decrease it, I suppose. But it'll take the oldest one, it'll recycle that one. But it makes so it doesn't occupy your entire disk just with tons of backups. But it gives you a nice rolling way, so you can say, wait a minute, I did something hinky to my database last Tuesday, I want to go back. And so you can go roll yourself back to that just by opening up a different file. And again, the Database Manager will tell you what was in each one. I did say if you still got your old machine and you had a failed hard drive, before you throw that machine away or donate it to Goodwill or take a jackhammer to it or whatever else, pull the hard drive, because 9 times out of 10, that whole hard drive, if you stick it in an external enclosure, will be, you can read it. So in order to do that, all you gotta do is open up your machine, see what kind of drive you've got. It's gonna be one of 3 different kinds of hard drives. One is, it kind of looks like a stick of memory on its side. That's called an NVMe SSD. That's the fastest and bestest and most new one. That one's great. It's called a SATA SSD, which is it's about the size of a deck of cards but thinner, and that just has 2 little connectors right over here. You just pull them out and that'll pop right in your hand. And then you could have a mechanical hard drive, which is same kind of idea. It's gonna be a little thicker. You really don't see those. I mean, you'll see those in desktops these days. You won't see them on well, I mean, if your laptop's like 15 years old, you might have one of those. But same kind of thing, but just mechanical. The same kind of it's called a 2.5-inch drive. SATA drive enclosure. Again, these things cost about $20-25. Well worth having one around if you just have computers in your life, because again, that machine that was dead, if you've pulled the hard drive and you ever want to look back at it, just pop it in there and hook it up to USB to another machine and you're good to go. So Amazon, you can get them. They can be there in the day in most places. So strongly suggest having a couple of those just in your life. If all of that has failed, like I say, if you've ever talked to our servers, certainly that cloud backup, we're doing everything we can to make sure that you save those. Do turn those on. If your machine is buff enough, so if you have a relatively recent computer, I'm going to say one that, probably not the lowest of the low in terms of performance. So, I mean, if you've got, like, again, the cheapest Best Buy $149 special. I'm going to say for you, maybe don't turn this on, but for anybody else, a really good feature in on the most modern version of ComicBase is go up under here, under Setup, go to Preferences, and there's an option over here. It says automatically, well, first you'll see over there where it says automatically back up your database when you close the program. Let me turn on the magnifier again. All right. So you see where it says automatically back up your database when you close the program? There's an option over here to compress the backup files to save space. If you have that turned on, which is a good idea because it does make your backups take much less disk space. It takes a little bit of computer processing power, but it does in the background. It usually takes about a minute. But if you've got that, then you also get the option to automatically save to the cloud, which is wonderful because what that means is every time I exit the program, not only is it going to make a backup of my work, it's going to save it compressed, and then it's going to back it up to the cloud right then and there. So I don't even need to think to do anything else. All I got to do is exit the program, and my stuff is backed up to that minute over at over on the website. So that's terrific. Like I say, it's not a default turned on for everybody. It defaults to being on if your computer has, I believe, at least 8 cores. So if you have a really, really minimal computer, we don't turn that on because honestly, it would take too long to do it, and your computer would be kind of it'd be jittery until it was done, so it would be kind of unpleasant, so we don't do that. But yeah, if you do have the ability to, definitely I would suggest turn that on. It's a really good idea. The other thing that will do is, because we know to update your mobile stuff every time you save to the cloud, that means that every time you do work on your desktop, it automatically gets reflected on the mobile app, and so that's a goodness all around. And then finally, if your stuff is all backed up on the mobile app, then we get to do the same trick with your data that anyone who is like a fully mobilified or like a cloud only program can do. Is, let's say you go and you just blow away your machine one day, or you just say, I've had it, I want out, I want a new computer. When you say I want a new computer, you can go get your new thing from wherever fine computers are sold. Get your bitchin' new machine, install ComicBase on it. Just go to ComicBase.com, my account, download the latest version, and the very first time you launch it, it'll say, "Oh, hey, we see we've got a cloud back of your stuff from 6 p.m. on Tuesday, or whenever it was the last time you used the program." And we'll say, "Did you want to use that copy?" And you say, "Yes, I would like to." At which point, you don't need to do anything. It just loads your just perfectly saved data that it just did onto your new machine. You don't have to switch anything. You don't need to migrate anything. You're good to go, and you're back in the game, and everything is just gorgeous. So that's definitely the easiest way to go if you've got that set up. Again, requires a little bit of horsepower, so not for all you guys with the sketchiest computers under the planet, but definitely a good thing to have done. All right, let me see here. I've been talking for a long time, so let me get to some of the announcements that have been going on while I've been babbling. Let me. By the way, I'll just hit the usual ones. Please, if this is the sort of thing that you like in your life, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Tell people about the channel. We try to do cool new things on the channel, keep it interesting. Don't forget also we have a special forums over at forums.comicbase.com. And we also have a special forum for suggesting live stream topics, as well as you can get the world famous Andre's comic book cover gallery, which he really does need to update, man. It's been a little while, but it's like if you ever want to know what over 1 million comic book covers printed out look like, you can download you can get a link to that one right on the torrent. And let me see here. Yes, and our admin, our moderator points out, and as soon as you're done watching the show, follow Pete's advice and make sure your important ComicBase databases are backed up, for goodness sake. Yes, please do, people. Let's talk just a little bit here. Let me just make sure if I didn't skip over anything super important here. OneDrive is evil. Yeah, let's see. Boothing shows. Chris Priscilla asks, are we doing any other shows during the year as exhibitors? I'm afraid this year we are not, and I honestly have mixed feelings about that this year. I mean, I have such cool stuff to show at Comic-Con that I really wish that I was still in the San Jose area, so it'd be easier for us to come down and do the show. But unfortunately, I'm now out in Nashville, and the rest of the crew's out in San Jose, and it's we've not been able to put together a show schedule since then, where we come down and exhibit. This is the first time I'm doing an event at a show. But like I say, I do look forward to talking with all you guys at the show. But yeah, there we go. Department of Comics says, I thought a Sidekick didn't work with ComicBase Open. It doesn't, except it can do exactly two things when ComicBase is open. One is it can post your items for sale. Don't ask me why. It does not conflict with the database in any way. It doesn't write data to the database. So even if ComicBase has got the thing locked, it can still work. But the other thing we do, and again, this is us being tricky here, is when you are saving to the cloud. Remember I said we're making a backup, we're compressing the backup, and then we're telling Sidekick go ahead and back that up. You're actually not working with your same database. You're working with the backup you just made 5 seconds earlier. And so it doesn't conflict with you using ComicBase. And we have a special hook working around that so that everything gets copied up under the right file names and so forth. But when it saves to the cloud, it kind of does a little quick rename on the fly. So it looks like it's backing up your main database when really it's backing up a very, very, very recent backup. But that's how we get around the idea that you can't have two programs using the database at the same time. But yeah, so that's us being sneaky. All right, so let's see here. Department of Comics says, Mike, backups from a separate SSD drive. Excellent idea. Let's see here. Question here is like with your love of robots, are you going to buy one of the Teslas when they become available? Wow. Oh, wow. I have so much to say about AI and robots and stuff like that. That's a whole other show. We'll talk about that one later. There's so much to get into. Anyway, so all right, so let me get on to I want to wrap up this whole thing here, and then let's get the heck out of here. So backup strategy, because I mean we've been beating this up, and we must say what has to be said. So look, at the end of the day, again, you know how we're trying to take care of you. We are trying to make sure that no matter what you're doing, you don't shoot yourself in the foot, and at least on the ComicBase side of things, that you are good to go. But if you use a computer and it's not just essentially a Chromebook, like a dumb terminal onto the web, right? So there's actually important stuff on the computer. You gotta have it backed up. And when you do that, there's a couple kind of rules of thumb, right? They say, one copy is no copies, right? Which is to say, if you only have one copy of your database and something goes wrong with it, then it's like you had nothing at all, because the 2 copies is 1 copy. So if I have 1 copy and I have a copy someplace else, then phew, okay, something went wrong over there, I got 1 copy now. When you're backing up, you want to go in order of, you want to back it up onto something that isn't your same hard drive, right? So if you've got the ability to have your ComicBase as on one drive, if you have more than one drive on your machine, you want to set your backups to be on a different drive. Excellent idea, because again, hey, something happens, it takes out my C drive. Hey, if I've got copies on my D drive, I don't really care that much. I'll replace my C drive and I'll be backing up and no problem. Get on something that isn't the same drive if you can. After that comes, get on something which isn't the same computer, right? So things can happen to the whole computer at once. I've had laptops stolen in coffee shops. I've had laptops that dropped and were shattered into a million little bits and were never coming back from anything. Again, we take calls all year long from people who've had any number of tragedies happen in their lives. I think, I don't know why, it's this little sick thing. I think my favorite sad but kind of funny story is the guy who spent so much time with his comic book collection. His wife, who was about to be his ex-wife, had, in a fit of pique, had stolen his computer with all his comic data on it because she was just so sick of it. Anyway, and that was before we were doing all this internet stuff. So when he asked us, do you have a copy of my data? We were like, no, we don't. So that wasn't good. Now we do all the internet stuff. So now there's a pretty good chance we do have a copy of your data if you shared it with us. But before then, yeah, that was not good. But yes, things can happen to a drive. They can happen to a whole computer. So have a copy someplace that isn't your computer. Now, if it's ComicBase, if you're saving to the cloud and you're saving the right database to the cloud, you're good. right? All you gotta do is let that thing save, and then you'll, again, it's something that isn't your computer. So if your wife runs off with your laptop, or it gets lost in Hurricane Katrina, or you name it, lost in fires, hail, windstorms. I mean, we've heard it all. Dropped off the roof of a car. Anyway, there will be a way to get your stuff back. And again, the whole thing you're fighting for is you want your time back. You want all the stuff you spent to put all the stuff into the database. So that's what you're really angling for, is your own time. This is your life. So save on something that isn't your computer. If you don't use Sidekick for whatever reason, well, everyone you should, but certainly a good idea. Use Dropbox, use OneDrive, use something to save your stuff automatically to something which is not your computer. Google Drive, whatever it is. Really good idea if it's automatic, because if it's not automatic, you'll forget to do it, and then you'll realize that, oh yeah, the last time I actually remembered consciously to back up my database was 3.5 years ago, and that's not great. But if you are backing up to something else and using one of these automatic services, the thing you want to do is don't back up your active database folder. So in other words, don't back up your ComicBase database.cbdb, back up your backups. The reason for it, and this is why OneDrive was in so much trouble, when it would get installed back when we were still having the default place that ComicBase would be in, it used to be your documents folder. The reason that was so much trouble when OneDrive came in and decided I'm just going to commandeer the entire documents folder and start backing up in real time, is it was constantly backing up incomplete copies of the database, because the database is never settled really as long as it's open. So if you're open and you're doing work, if you just grab the disk file that's behind, that only reflects part of what's going on your computer, because the rest of it, of the true story of your database, is part of it's in your computer's memory, part of it's on the disk. If all you're doing is grabbing the disk portion, and the database is still open, it maybe didn't even get a readable file. And so what OneDrive would do is it would go to enormous lengths and would burn all your bandwidth and really slow down your machine and bury your internet and so forth, all to back up these incomplete files. And it was a pain in the butt. So these days, the way we handle that is we try like hell to keep away from OneDrive's clutches, which is when we start a brand new database in ComicBase 2025. By default, it's on the C ComicBase folder. It's not in your documents folder anymore by default. Now, if your stuff's still in your documents folder, that's fine. Just realize there's limits to backing that up if you're automatically backing up documents, if that's where the database is going to be when it's open. Probably the best way to go on that, if you're going to use an offline backup service, is have it back up your backup folder, or have it back up the things that are ComicBase when ComicBase is closed. Which, if you set ComicBase in preferences to back up to a different folder, like your Dropbox folder, that's terrific, because then they get saved on your computer, and they also get automatically saved up to Dropbox's cloud. Works great. Let me see here. So Dr. B says, so why does ComicBase have to explicitly ask for permission to put my data in the cloud, but Microsoft OneDrive doesn't, asking for a friend? Yeah, great frickin' question. You will see, actually, that OneDrive did ask for your permission. It was just buried in all that disclaimer applesauce that you were clicking by right when you installed Windows 11 that nobody ever read. So yeah, that's a thing. We just try to be a little more blatant about that, because we hate burning you. Anyway, so that's a thing. Let's see here. Chris Price says, if you lose your PCN database in a fire, chances are the collection is not in a good place either. It depends where your PC was versus where your collection was. They're not always in the same place. Actually, some of the worst comic storage stories I ever heard was it was like they keep their comic collection in a storage locker, so the comics got ripped off, but their database was fine. Let's see, Chris, Dr. B says, I have a firm believer in offsite backups. I rotate 2 backup drives, and one is always kept offsite. Friend's office or a PO box will do nicely for that. Yes, good idea. Steve Herring says, I have my database backups on a network drive, external SSD, my desktop, and offsite copy on my son's desktop in another town. Right on, man. All right, I think we covered this one to death. All right, so yeah, and the other thing I'd say is, don't forget, if somehow you get caught out and you've never had a proper backup and you've ignored everything we've said here, if you've used ComicBase in the internet era for any length of time and you're absolutely out of luck, call us anyway, because there's a chance you've touched our servers and saved a copy. even inadvertently, like when like if you marked your whole collection as for sale and posted it onto Atomic Avenue, then we have a list of your stuff, right? So we can extract that out and we can help you get it back if you ever talk to our servers. But again, at that point, it's an extreme case. Don't have extreme cases in your life. It's stressful. So that's about it. Okay, and I think that's about it. All I want to say about that for now. All right, guys, I've beaten that one to death. I'm going to hang out with the other tech tips for now because I'm getting talked out. But we've got some to talk about for next time. All right, so I like to see how we need to pull this. Who believes Pete has a robot on order? Yeah. All right, guys, we'll talk another time. Thank you so much. Appreciate this one. Again, hit that like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.